I always like just to also add in, why is this important? I think for most of you, you could articulate a lot of the reasons omni-channel pricing and thinking about that holistically is important. But just to give us some fodder, right? Some fuel for the discussions that we might be leading with our internal teams, with our stakeholders. Because again, you might be the brand working with retailers who hasn't really been thinking about this. Again, a retail merchant obviously may have some of this in mind, but if they're traditionally more in-store or had more of that experience, or they're online merchants that now own the in-store world as enterprise merchants, this might not all be considered together. So it's just important to define the why, right? So why it's important is because shoppers, the most important stakeholder for all of us, their expectations and behaviors are shaped now by a total omni-channel price, which includes all those types, all those vehicles, all those mechanisms. But there are four big parts, and we're going to break these down in just a moment here. But there's the actual price, right? The hard number, the listed selling price. It may have been the MSRP, but it may also be what the retailer sets, right? Because it's at their discretion. But it also includes the hard fees, right? Because again, if I'm going in store, I don't have shipping fees. But if I want it shipped to me later today or later this week or brought to me fast, I'm going to have some sort of picking, packing, delivery cost that actually gets factored into the hard number. So I've got the actual price, right? And then I've got this perceived value, right? What is the shopper getting, or what do they feel that they're getting, right? And we'll talk to some of the examples again, but that it could be some sort of promo that got me additional value. Maybe there's some sort of cause campaign or a charity component where I feel like, hey, I'm paying a little bit more, but I'm given to a cause that I care about, right? Again, it could be the convenience that they're getting, right? So, hey, I didn't feel well, and I need to feel better, and I'm gonna get that allergy relief medication to me in the next 30 minutes, and so that's value worth paying maybe the full price without the discount, right? The required effort is important, right? How much work does that shopper have to do to get that price? It could literally be as simple as, I want the lowest price possible. I'm willing to drive my own derriere all the way to the store to get it. Or it could be as simple as like, well, I have to have a membership to access those lower prices. Or, hey, I've got to clip that coupon, right? Sometimes this is minor effort, but all of that has to be factored in because time is money and friction is money. And so everybody is going to vote with their dollars wherever it's the least, frictionful experience, but where they get the full value monetarily, but also from an effort perspective. And then there's also got to be kind of an experience transparency, right? We're not trying to use buzzwords just to create more complexity, but all of this has to be clear, consistent, relevant, and trustworthy, right? I mean, in a perfect world, there's stages, right? If I have a couple clicks to cart, whether I buy online or in store, a couple touch points to cart, I might not need to throw the entire textbook or all the fine print at them on step one. But you don't want anyone to get to the cart and go, hold on a second, that tripled in price. I thought I was getting, it said delivery, but it never added, it said delivery available, but it didn't indicate that it was 3 times as much to get that quickly, right? So somewhere very quickly, we have to make sure people feel clear on the full price and that they're making those trade-offs. I want this more quickly than maybe someone else, so I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that convenience and speed, right? So all of this factors in, right? There's a need to audit the total omni-channel price. And these are all either straight numbers or they are elements, right? They're qualitative elements versus quantitative elements that we need to think about and even just map out based on trips, category roles, our shopper personas and whatnot, right? So shopper expectations and behaviors are shaped by total omni-channel price because our shoppers are omni. They're starting online, they're increasingly ending online, but more importantly, over half of all sales in-store are influenced by digital and online and e-commerce and digital shelf touch points. And even for that, the shopper who isn't digitally influenced, the merchants are increasingly digitally influenced. I know many merchants out there listening, watching today are heavily influenced by where their growth is coming from, often for the majority online. If you look at a lot of retailer annual reports, the majority of their sales from 2024, their growth came from e-commerce. Not necessarily the majority of their sales, but the majority of the growth, right? They're not majority e-commerce players yet, but that growth, that heavy online growth, and then the influence growth is going to continue to change their decisions about what they carry in store, right? What you retailers carry in store on your planogram based on what's selling online, right? So we've shown this before. Shoppers are omni, whether or not they buy online or not, they're omni influenced, and if nothing else, the merchant is increasingly influenced by omni-channel performance. Most shoppers, in fact, 76% of shoppers, are likely to choose a retailer offering consistent pricing and promotions across channels. I've seen similar numbers for just shoppers expecting a seamless experience across channels from retailers. Pricing was a big part of those 4 Ps, right? That matters, right? So, and that inconsistency, right, is sometimes unavoidable, right? This is the real world. Things change in real times. It's not going to be perfect at every single store for every single shopper on every single mission using digital and physical touch points. But where we can control it, where we can influence it is critical, because inconsistency is going to drive online and in-store, it already does, cart abandonment. People will not buy. They will leave.